my name is Brooke. I'm a producer here at News 6, and I'm also the Setting the Stage newsletter writer. Today we have a special guest from The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Paul Mecurio. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, great to be with you. How
So
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to come into some warm weather because it's very cold and rainy in New York. So I'm very excited to come down, hang out, at your house, have a barbecue, whatever.
So you're bringing your show Permission to Speak to Orlando next week, and you're launching it in Orlando. Why did you decide to launch it in Orlando?
Well, I'm doing it at the Dr. Phillips Center, which is one of the premier performing arts centers in the country. So that's just, it was a real honor to be able to do it there. And Orlando's got a great, comedy community. And my show is, comedic, but also kind of has a point of view about like connecting people. So it just felt like a great place to do it. And I've been there before and really excited to be down there.
I noticed more shows are getting more and more interactive and immersive. What made you want to do a show that gets the audience involved?
Yeah, well, I do stand up. I work on the Late Show as well. And in my stand up, I love talking to audiences. And it started out just quick chit chat, but then as you peel the onion back, you interview people, it's like you get these amazing stories. And so the premise of the show is we're nameless and faceless to each other, we're kind of disconnected, even divisive at times. But if we talk and share stories, we realize we have more in common than we think, and maybe we're not so divisive. It's not a political show. It's a fun show with these absolutely hilarious stories. And then I'm telling stories and doing stand-up in the show as well. So it's a nice mix of stand-up and this sort of shared story with a beautiful set. The show's directed by Frank Oz, who created The Muppets with Jim Henson and is the original Yoda and directed Dirty Rotten Scoundrels and Bowfinger and all these major movies. And my set is designed by the set designer for The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, who's also doing the Olympic set right now as we speak. And so it's a multimedia show with rear projection, we have animation and a lot of cool video elements. But the stories you get are like, you couldn't write them. Like there's some of them are so outrageous and funny and kooky and interesting. Like, for example, we had this young gentleman on stage, probably in his mid-20s, and he's gay. And I just asked him, how was it coming out, and how was it when you came out to your parents? And this is what he had to say.
I was a pretty gay little boy.
How did you react when he told you?
The first thing she said was, "Why are you telling me at 10:30 at night?"
I just love that guy, because that answer, why are you telling me at 10:30 at night? That's the mother basically going, I know you're gay. You're not telling me anything I don't already know. I got to get ready for a big meeting at work, right? And that's the beauty of it. It's very real. And, like I had a woman on stage, her name was, I said, "What's your name?" She goes, "Nydia." I said, "Lydia?" She goes, "No, Nydia." I go, "Oh, that's a unique name. How'd you get that name?" That's all I said to her. She goes, "Well, my father got my mother, pregnant with me, but at the same time was having an affair with a woman named Nydia, so he named me after the woman he was having an affair with." And the place went crazy. It's like, what? And so so what's happening is the stories are coming out. They're really fun. They're really funny. And then people are connecting after the show. They'll go up to somebody and say, "Oh yeah, I loved your story about coming out," or, "Hey, you're from Orlando. I'm from Orlando. You're from Michigan. I'm from Michigan." So it's been a really fun way to connect people and just have a few laughs. It's like we're hanging out in somebody's big basement, having drinks and telling stories that are funny.
It's always interesting to see like what people are willing to share, especially with an audience. I wanted to know, what is a great moment you experienced from your show?
I had this wonderful man. He had polio. He was like 30, I don't know, almost 40, young, and he was just so open and honest about it. And I said, "How was it telling? How do you explain to your young child who was like 6 at the time, like, well, I got polio and what it is?" He goes, "Well, I couldn't explain it, so I just told her I got this from Vietnam, right?" And he goes, "I just made it up." And then he said, fast forward 12 years later, his daughter was 18, And she said to him, "Daddy, were you really injured in Vietnam?" And he was like, "Oh God, I forgot I told that. It was a lie." And everybody just went crazy. And I just thought it was so cute because he found a way to kind of deal with it, but not deal with it. And then it kind of in a funny way came back to bite him. And so that was one of my really favorite moments. And I had a transgender person on stage who was really terrific and was like the hit of the night because they were so like open and honest. So there's a nice mix, comedy and some like just real genuine stories. But the polio guy was pretty fun. He was pretty fun.
That does sound funny, and it sounds like it makes for like every show is different. So we talked a little bit about how you're on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. I was
Yeah.
curious what your daily life is like. Are you still going to be on the Late Show while you're touring with your Permission to Speak show? How's that going to work?
Yeah, well, Stephen can't survive without me. I carry the show basically. He's just a puppet. No, actually, he and I are good friends. We go back to the Daily Show together. We started on the Daily Show together. I was a writer performer on that show, and then I worked on the Colbert Report. So I can take sort of little leaves of absence. So usually I'll work on the weekends, but Monday through Thursday we're taping shows. I perform on the show. I'm doing, I just a performance for the audience, or I'll be on camera with the show. So kind of we're a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. And so, but we tape through this week. Right now we're dark. We're gonna, kind of not airing the week of the between Christmas and New Year's. So it allows me to kind of go out. But it's been fun. It's been our 9th year. This is starting our 9th season. It's been a long run, but it goes by really fast. And so that's kind of how it works. And so I basically I tell them I'm going to not be there, and no one questions me because I am the man. So I basically just tell them, hey, I can't be there, and we kind of just work around it.
That is great.
And,
Yeah, that's great. You have that flexibility. I was wondering, how did you get into comedy?
Well, it's funny. I took the traditional path that most comedians take. I went to Georgetown Law School, and then was working on Wall Street as a lawyer and investment banker, and then I quit. I wanted to amass as much debt as possible, and then have a job where I couldn't pay it off. And I think I figured out how to do that. No, I didn't plan on doing this. I was working as a lawyer, banker on Wall Street, doing mergers and acquisition deals, and these big deals. And then I started writing jokes as a hobby. I don't know why. And I met Jay Leno at a private function that my firm was invited to, and I had all these jokes written. I went up to him. I go, look, I don't know if you need jokes, but I got these jokes, and you can have them. And he was like, okay. He really does talk like they're letting helium out of a balloon very slowly. It's like this. So he takes them, and then a couple of days later, my phone rings, and this person's on the other end of the phone. It's Jay Leno. Is Paul there? And I'm like, there's no way Jay Leno was calling me, right? So I think it's my friend pulling a prank. So I say, yeah, really funny, David. I don't have time for this. He goes, no, really, it's Jay Leno. I go, stop. He goes, it's actually Jay Leno. I go, it is not Jay Leno. He goes, no, it is. And then I actually said to Jay Leno, well, if you're Jay Leno, you do a lousy Jay Leno. and he goes, I think I do a pretty good me. I'm like, oh my God, it's Jay Leno. So he said, look, I read your stuff. I'll hire you to send in jokes for the Tonight Show model. I'll pay you $50 a joke. And I said, okay. He said, don't leave your job. Just if I use something, I'll pay you. He goes, what do you do for a living? I go, I'm a lawyer. He goes, I knew it. I go, why? He goes, you're too wordy. You write like a lawyer. He goes, you're writing a joke, not the Magna Carta. Just get to the punchline already. And then 4 days later, he calls me again. And he's like, it's Jay, it's Paul there. And I'm like, what? What do you want? I'm busy, Jay. I'm carrying Stephen Colbert at the Late Show. I can't do everything. No. I said, I go, what's up? He goes, I'm going to do one of your jokes on the Tonight Show tonight. And I'm like, okay, great. And I watched it, and it just transformed me. It like blew my head off my shoulders. And then I started to write more jokes, send them more jokes, and then like lead this like secret double life where I was a lawyer by day and a comedian by night. And I'd sneak out of work, and I'd go to dive bars around New York City. One of the places I worked was actually such a dive. It was called Downtown Beirut 2. Now, they were either franchising these places or somebody blew up one. And it was just like the dregs of the city would go there, and I'd go in my little suit and do my set. And people always say to me, like, "Did you know you were going to be a comedian?" I'm like, "No." They, "Were you funny?" I'm like, "Well, yeah. I guess I was always the funniest lawyer in my law firm." Which really, Brooke, isn't saying much. That's like saying you're the sexiest IT guy. You know what I mean? It's just not saying a whole lot.
Yeah.
and and then people would go to me, "What kind of law do you do?" I go, do mergers and acquisitions. And they're like, "Oh, that's considered the worst kind of lawyer because when you merge companies, there's duplicate jobs, so you put people out of jobs." And they go, "Oh, you guys are evil. Oh, you're the worst kind of lawyer. You kill kittens." I'm like, "No, we would outsource that." And so so it was this crazy ride that was completely unexpected, and that's how I got into it.
Wow, it's really crazy how things always work out that way. So what is next for you once your Permission to Speak show wraps up?
I'm running for president of the United States. I think I have a good shot at winning. No, we're going to take it back to New York, but then we're also going to put it on television. I'm continuing to act and perform on TV. I go on different news shows. I go on MSNBC, CNN, NBC, and as a commentator, satirist, CBS Sunday Morning. And then I'm in a couple of movies that are coming out, one with Liev Schreiber and one with Megan Fox. So I continue to do my mixed bag of things, work on The Late Show, do my Broadway show, either touring or in the city, and then acting and appearing on TV. And my podcast, I got a really cool podcast called, because it's the law, Brooke, everybody has to have a podcast now. It's called Inside Out with Paul Mecurio, and I've had guests I like to talk to people about their process. So I've had some really cool guests, Paul McCartney, Stephen Colbert, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Willie Geist from MSNBC, Al Roker, just a whole, a whole panoply of people, Laura Prepon. So really fun. It's you can get it anywhere there are podcasts, but really enjoy it.
Wow, I love it. That does sound like a lot of fun. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to remind our audience again when your show is coming to Orlando?
Yeah, it's December 29th, Friday, at the Dr. Phillips Center. You go to drphillips.org to get tickets and come out, tell some stories, or not, just sit and watch and enjoy the show. And next time, I got a great story of how I got Paul McCartney on my podcast that I can tell you the next time I come on. So, but it's really fun.
All righty, sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. A lot of fun.